Welcome back to the VA Loan Masterclass series. Most veterans tend to assume that the VA loan is a one-time use benefit. They use it once and then they never can use it again. However, that's not true at all. And one of the even lesser known parts of this benefit is that under the right circumstances, a veteran can actually have 2 or more VA loans at the same time, depending on the situation. In today's video, I'm breaking down how that exactly works, what makes it possible, the math behind it, and the situations where this actually comes up in real life. If we haven't met yet, my name is William Ware, the Loan Cat. I'm a GWAT veteran, currently still serving in the Army Reserve. For the last few years, I've been a mortgage broker specializing in VA loans. And this video is part of my VA Loan Masterclass series where I'm breaking down the benefit in plain English. So let's get into it. So here's what we're going to talk about in today's video. The concept of entitlement and why it makes multiple VA loans possible, how your remaining entitlement is going to be calculated, the real world situations where 2 veterans end up with 2 loans at the same time, the limitations and requirements involved, and what veterans need to know before attempting this strategy. So let's start with the foundation of all VA loans, and that's entitlement. Every veteran who qualifies for the VA loan benefit has what's called entitlement. You can think of entitlement as the amount of guarantee that the VA is providing on your behalf to the lender. For most veterans today, full entitlement is available, and there is no VA imposed loan limit for borrowers with full entitlement, as long as they qualify for the loan amount based on their income, credit, and the other factors that we've already covered in this series. But here's the key concept. Entitlement is not automatically used up in its entirety just because you have one VA loan. If you still own and have an active VA loan on a current property, you've used a portion of your entitlement. But depending on the loan amount and your specific entitlement amount, you may still have remaining entitlement left over. That remaining entitlement is the thing that allows veterans to potentially obtain a second or even third or fourth VA loan while the first few are still active. So here's how the math is generally going to work. The VA provides a basic entitlement amount, and that amount gets applied against loan limits in your specific county based on your county's conforming loan limit. When you take out a VA loan, a portion of your entitlement gets tied up with that loan, and that's going to be based on the loan amount. Now, if your remaining entitlement after that is sufficient to support a second loan amount in your new location, based on the lender's calculations, you may qualify for a second or even third or fourth VA loan without selling or refinancing the others. The exact numbers will end up depending on your specific entitlement, the loan limits in your county, and the loan amount that you're trying to obtain. This is not something that you should try to calculate on your own with a rough guess. Your lender needs to run the actual entitlement calculation using your certificate of eligibility and the current loan limits for your specific situation and area. Now let's talk about when this actually comes up in real life. The biggest and most common scenario that this shows up is a PCS. Say a service member buys a home using their VA loan at their first duty station. Then, a couple years later, they get those dreaded PCS orders to a new duty station. Well, rather than selling their first home, they decide they want to keep it as a rental property and purchase a new primary residence at the new base using their remaining entitlement. This is one of the more common ways that veterans start building a real estate portfolio, utilizing their military benefit strategy. Buy with the VA, get orders to move, keep the first home as a rental, and then buy again with another VA loan at the new location. And later in the series, we're going to have an entire video dedicated to building wealth with the VA loan benefit. And this is just one of those core strategies. The second scenario involves veterans who relocate for reasons other than military orders. Say a career change, a family situation, or any reason that creates a genuine need to establish a new primary residence while retaining the previous property. You have to remember though, the occupancy requirement that we covered earlier in the series. The second VA loan still requires that veteran to intend to occupy the property as their primary residence. This is not a strategy for purchasing investment properties directly. With a second VA loan, the new property still has to be your home. Now, the third scenario is a lot less common, but it's still worth mentioning. Some veterans pay off their first VA loan, but don't sell the property, perhaps because they refinanced it into a conventional loan after meeting certain conditions. In that case, the entitlement was tied to the VA loan, becomes available again, even though they still own the original property. And that frees up entitlement for a future purchase. So here's where the limitations tend to come in. The strategy depends entirely on having enough remaining entitlement to support the new loan amount in the new location. In high cost areas, the math may not work if a significant portion of your entitlement is already tied up with the first property. It also depends on your income and overall qualifications supporting 2 mortgage payments at once, even if the first property is generating rental income. Lenders have specific guidelines about how much of that rental income can actually be counted to offset that mortgage payment in your qualifying income, and we'll cover that in detail in our upcoming video about unique income scenarios. It also requires a genuine intent to occupy the property. This is not a workaround for buying investment properties with VA finance. I've said it before and I've said it again. You have to intend to live there. Here's the reality check. This strategy gets talked about online in ways that sometimes make it sound a lot simpler than it actually is. The entitlement math has to work, the income has to support it, the occupancy intent has to be genuine, and not every lender is comfortable or experienced running these calculations correctly. If you're considering this strategy, you need a lender who can actually pull your certificate of eligibility, calculate your remaining entitlement accurately, and tell you with certainty whether the math supports a second loan in your specific situation, at your specific price range, and in your specific location. This is one of those areas in VA lending where experience matters significantly. A lender who has never run this calculation before is more likely to make a mistake that costs you time, money, or even the deal itself. So bringing everything from today's video together, veterans can have 2 VA loans or more sometimes at the same time when they have sufficient remaining entitlement to support more than one. This most commonly occurs during PCS moves, when a service member keeps their first home as a rental and purchases a new primary residence at their duty station. The second loan still requires a genuine intent to occupy the property, and the math depends on your specific entitlement, the loan amounts, the loan limits where you are purchasing, and your income qualification, including how rental income from the first property is calculated into your qualifying income. And this is a strategy that requires an experienced lender who can run the actual numbers correctly. If you're facing a PCS move or even a relocation, and you're considering keeping your current home while purchasing again with your VA benefit, that conversation needs to happen with your lender early, not after you've already made the plans and gone under contract. The next video in the VA Loan Masterclass series is going to cover a huge hot topic, and it's VA refinance rules, including how IRRRLs and cash out refinances work and how veterans who already have a VA loan in place are affected. And we'll see you guys in the next one.